Welcome to another edition of Save Local Journalism. The National Newspaper Publishers Association and the Black Press of America presents the leadership in the community. Today we are talking with the great publishers of the Black Press. The four we are talking to today is Jim Washington of the Dallas Weekly. The Dallas Weekly is continuously published without missing a single issue for more than 60 years. The Dallas Weekly has emerged as the leading, most trusted voice of the African American community in North Texas. The Dallas Weekly also has been recognized and awarded for its impactful journalistic excellence, not only locally, but also statewide, regionally, and nationally. We also have Dr. John Warren of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. For more than 6 decades, the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint has faithfully reported on news from an African American perspective in San Diego County. Jackie Hampton is also joining us from the Mississippi Link. The Mississippi Link is an African American owned newspaper and media company that emphasizes the concerns of the African American community and its readers. They are highly respected print and online. And finally, last and certainly not least, our National Newspaper Publishers Association's chair, Karen Carter Richards, who publishes the Houston Forward Times for over 60 years. The Houston Forward Times has been the leading newspaper for African Americans in the South. They have never missed a week of print. The newspaper is recognized or has recognized that it could never have done so without the support of their subscribers and their advertisers. Welcome again, publishers, to another great live stream that we have planned today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's good to see each and every one of you, especially camera shy Jackie Hampton of the Mississippi Link.
I'll get you for that.
Well, Jackie, you know, we're going to start with you, actually, Jackie, because you're so camera shy. but you got a face for TV, Jackie.
Certainly.
So, Jackie, you know, a lot of states have reopened since COVID-19. What's been going on down there in Mississippi, and what specifically is the Mississippi Link? What have you been covering?
Well, definitely we've been on top of COVID-19 here in the state, here in the city. As you know, as most people know, the state is open for business. And of course, our governor has emphasized taking precaution. Our mayor, of course, is not ready to open up, and he has issues with us moving forward. So we're just covering what's going on in the city of Jackson as well as in the state. We are covering how people are or should be getting back to work. What's really important about what we are doing, there are so many people so anxious to go to work. The students are a little down because they're not having their graduations as in the past, and so many of the events, conferences that are normally going on can't be. So what we're trying to do is put a positive twist on it. We've covered, for instance, our president of the National Baptist Convention. He had a pastor's anniversary. What his church did is gave him a parade, and we publicized that. This week, we are having a focusing on a parade of a 108-year-old woman of the community, Terry, Mississippi. Her family gave her a parade on Sunday. And it's just amazing. All the family had on their masks, but they were able to honor this 108-year-old Christian woman who's been in the community for a long time, serving her community. So in spite of everybody not being able to go to work, not following the social distancing, we try and focus on some of the positive things that make people feel better about the situation we all find ourselves in. We'll continue to do that, and at the same time, we'll continue to keep the public aware of the safe distancing, the washing the hands, and all of the things that they should be doing as they open up the city and the state.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? People understand that turning to the Black press and the pages of the Black press really does bring a lot of positive news. And from the Southeast, we're going to go out to Southern California. Dr. John Warren, San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. Dr. Warren, we know that California is coming under some sort of scrutiny. They've had a lot of cases of COVID-19, and also they've opened up. What's been your coverage of the situation, John?
Well, the Voice and Viewpoint has partnered with our local county health agency, and we have been involved in both making sure that we get information to that part of our community that's not on the internet. At least 50% of our population is not on the internet, and this became very apparent when they started distributing laptops to our students who did not have cable access. And so we have been covering the local directives. We have been providing papers with all of the food drops that are being done here, both in terms of school lunch and the meals that are being given. Copies of the papers with printed information are going in the to the extent of over 2,000 a week with multiple pass outs. And plus, we're covering what's happening in terms of the state, national, and local issues surrounding this virus. San Diego County has been fortunate in the sense that some of our numbers have been low. One of the things we did, we went into zip code areas where we had high African American and Latino populations, and we persuaded the county and the state to add testing sites to those locations. So that we would be able to get a better grip on exactly what was happening. And so this has been a very successful partnership from our standpoint. And we're involved in it for the long haul. We have also published an African American health disparity issue 2 weeks ago that went into all of those underlying effects that supposedly contribute to us being at such high risk. And we tried to make that available in background information.
Yeah, John Warren of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. Thanks so much for that opening commentary. Jim Washington is with us from the Dallas Week. We had the pleasure of having Jim on the program some time ago, and we got him back because he's a good-looking man. Jim, what's going on? What's going on in Dallas?
You know, let me savor the good-looking part. But you have to remember, regardless of how serious this is, and this is very serious, that we still live in a political climate, and Texas is politicized along political party lines with regard to this. Dallas City is basically has an African American mayor, and he is very much cautious. We have a governor who is actually hardcore Republican, who is less than that as it relates to our communities, we think, as well as what's going on in the state. So Texas is open, so to speak. And as such, we don't necessarily trust all the numbers, but people do want to get out. We tend to consider ourselves pretty blessed, if you will, because we have been moving towards the digital distribution of our product. We have online press release, online newscast, if you will. So there's a lot of local things that we're covering, and our biggest thing is just to let our people know that this is affecting us twice as often, twice as severe as other populations, and that's been the gist of our coverage. Fortunately, through our multimedia platform, we've been able to get the word out pretty quickly about what's going on here. But from an outside looking in, it's a battle, and that battle seems to be more and more of a political nature. Now, Texas, I think, is raising its hand to get the Republican National Committee if it does move from North Carolina. So there is as much excitement about the state opening up, and people are excited about that. Our job is just to let them know that this ain't over yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons we've been looking for, we've had 6 publishers live stream so far, and we've been looking forward to this. All of our publishers today are NNPA board members, and At the foremost of that board is our national chair, the wonderful Karen Carter Richards of the Houston Forward Times. It is absolutely a privilege to have you on, Karen Carter Richards. What's been going on in Houston?
Oh man, a lot is going on here in Houston. We started coverage very early with COVID because we realized early on before the other media started talking about it that it was affecting our community, and we would let them know, hey, listen, wake up, this is affecting us. Don't think that you're immune to this. And so we started really early with coverage between Jeff Boney and another contributing writer, Derek Muhammad. We've been tackling things that are actually affecting our community. We wrote a piece about, Derek Muhammad wrote a piece about how Black America ended up on an economic ventilator, which talked about how hard this hit us economically, and where Jeff Boney unfortunately contracted the coronavirus, and he has been working very closely and just started a partnership with Dr. Joseph Gass and Dr. Joseph Marone, who are doing an excellent job here in Houston at the United Memorial Center. I think might have the name a little wrong. I'll correct it later. But they haven't lost a patient out there, and they are really they've treated Jeff, they've treated a lot of people, and they're doing some very great work here in the city of Houston. And I don't want to forget our Congresswoman, Sheila Jackson Lee. We did a main feature on her last week because she's doing an outstanding job. I don't know how she does it. She lives and breathes and sleeps and eats in all of the COVID information. She's opened up, made sure we had funds for testing sites, working along with some other people, but she is out there every day getting food to people, getting testing sites continuously opened up. And we're just so proud of her and a lot of the elected officials here in the city of Houston.
Yeah, you know, Sheila Jackson Lee has really been a tremendous advocate for her people and certainly for the Black press. And so has the Congressional Black Caucus. And that gives me a segue into a programming note for tomorrow. We're having a special live stream with the chair of the CBC, Karen Bass, at 3:30 tomorrow right here. So tune in tomorrow. We're going to talk a lot more about COVID-19 and how it has impacted Black America and some other things that are going on in Congress. I want the publishers and you guys, you know, I'm going to throw this out there. I just want you guys to discuss this. We had a live stream, Lucinda Burton of the Burton Wire. She's a Black press reporter as well. Yesterday, she did a live stream about some comments that was made by former Vice President Joe Biden that he made to Solomon, how you say it, the God. I wish these people use their real names. but it's that if you know you ain't Black comment that Joe Biden made, and that got the RNC all happy because they felt like, you know, they pinned him down as a so-called racist. And you put his record next to Trump. I don't know what you get, but I want you publicists, when you heard about this, if you heard about the Joe Biden thing, what's your reaction? And perhaps we could start with Jim Washington.
Oh, I mean, you know, I'm not at a loss for words on things like this. You know, in an environment that is as serious as this is, I don't think that this comment was viewed by many people as anything more than a got you moment. A got you moment from the Republican National Committee, because they need something. Because as everyone well knows, the campaign for president has basically been silent, given the severity of the situation and circumstances that we live under. Our current president is using his platform every day, and it's still, by virtue of Twitter and other things, every day. Joe Biden has really been sitting home taking care of his family and the things he needs to, and he's not inserting himself into this dynamic. So as he reaches out and does this, I mean, if you know Joe Biden, then I absolutely believe that he's going to say something else. But I think that we live in such serious times that particularly the African-American community is looking for substance and not gotcha moments. If in fact something else had come up and there was some lingering doubt about where he stands on issues that affect us, yes, it might have had some legs. But to say, aha, I got you, that's like saying, okay, the Republican National Committee is now going to deal with him in his use of or his abuse of women. And if you look at the other candidate, I don't think there's a comparison there. But I just think that it was a gotcha moment going awry, so to speak.
Yeah. Do we still have Dr. Warren? We'll bring Dr. Warren back, but Karen Carter Richards, you care to weigh in on that one?
I feel the same way Jim Washington does. I mean, are you not hearing the things that come from Trump? You know, so if we had to weigh those, I think the same way. Just they're looking for something to create an issue.
Yeah, and what about? And I'm going to go again for the publishers to discuss what about this idea that seems to originate with Diddy about the Black folks holding the vote hostage until Biden or Trump, for that matter, meets the Black people's demands that they have. What's your sense of that? Can you talk about that a bit? And Jackie, you can jump in, Jackie.
Let's break it up.
She's
Jackie,
muted.
we have you muted.
What about now?
Yes.
Let's go back to the original question regarding Joe Biden and the statement he did in fact make. I agree with both Jim and Karen, but I also look at how down to earth Joe Biden is and the relationship he has had over the years with African Americans. Sometimes I look at him as one of us. When he's greeted me, it's sort of like we've known each other forever. And when I look at the relationship he had with President Barack Obama, I can understand him making a comment like that and meaning absolutely nothing. It's the same kind of comment we might make to one another. We might say, man, if you feel that way, you're not Black. But he can't say it without being criticized by some. And so the Republicans are taking that, running with it. But I look at it as he's just making a statement as though he's one of us. And that's okay. He does have to watch what he says because they're going to run with it. But as far as his track record, it is extremely good with the African Americans. And I think that when he becomes president of these United States of America, he'll have good people around him who will help him and guide him. That's the difference between his campaign and the people he'll work with versus Donald Trump. He looks for people who think like he does. That's his problem, or who will agree to what he wants them to agree. Joe Biden will look at it and say, what's really best for this country? And those are the people he'll surround himself with, and he'll listen to them, just like he's listening to the physicians regarding COVID-19 and protecting his family. That's what we can get and expect from Joe Biden. So rather than thinking about those comments that mean absolutely nothing as far as what he has done for this nation and what he can and will do for this nation, let's just throw that out the window and let the Republicans run with that, because I think it's going to backfire on them.
Yeah. Before we go to Dr. Warren, we always like to acknowledge those who are watching, those who are commenting, and we have so many. We have Sasha Hampton checks in, saying hello. She's a big supporter of Bill Cosby. Casey Hayes says kudos to the Mississippi Link. We have a Kay Hayes who says keeping us informed. The Mississippi Link. Zane Beyond Words says thank you. Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informer says she's checked in. The Dallas Weekly, of course, Jim actually has fans at his paper. We see that, so that's always great. And it's Terry Schlichtenmeyer says your bookworm is here, and thank you to the Black press for everything you do. And it's great that Jeffrey Boney. We are so happy that Jeffrey Boney is well. Jeffrey Boney went, as Karen Carter Richards stated earlier, he went through that devastating COVID-19 situation. He was on a ventilator for a long time. We are so glad. He's such an asset to all of us, not just the Houston Forward Times, but all of us. So it's good to see Jeff Dr. Warren, I want to get to you. We are talking about Joe Biden's remarks, but more than that, we had Diddy, for instance, talked about holding the black vote hostage until the black demand is met, black people's demand is met. I want your take on both situations.
Well, first, I think that Black people, period, African American or African, need to understand that we can't afford to play this game about Joe Biden with Donald Trump in the White House. We have already lost thousands of lives because of the insanity and the lack of leadership of this man. The country is paying a tremendous price. We need to have a priority which says that yes, we can work for Biden. Nobody is perfect, but our number one priority has to be to get Donald Trump out of the White House if we are to save America as well as ourselves, because the country is about to collapse just because of the lack of leadership, the erosion of our national position. All of these things are critical in terms of what we're dealing with. And so I think we need to look at something else too. There's this question now, must he choose a black woman to be his running mate? I think we've got two African American choices in mind. One for the Supreme Court, and I think he wants to put a woman on the court. I think Ruth Bates Ginsburg will hang on until we get through this election so that we can do that. That's number one. And I think the second element of this is that we need to look at who is the best person qualified to give the leadership needed to support him in terms of going forward. And that cannot be reduced to a popularity contest. That cannot be a choice between Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris and whoever else we throw up black because they're female. There are times set that these people will have an opportunity, but we need to get the best decision right now that's going to help us survive as a nation and as a people.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim. You wanted to jump in there.
One of the things I'd just like to know that I love it when publishers get together because we pivot to the political, and that's where we are. But the country has not yet turned there yet. So we have not had what you and I would consider to be a normal debate politically about who should be president. I think the reality where we're concerned is that black people in this country can never afford to not be political, ever. I don't care if it's at the city council level, state government, and certainly at the national level. So these issues that we're talking about are not new for us. That's why I said it was kind of like passe to hear them attack Joe Biden politically. Now, I don't want to come on and just say that the black press is in Joe Biden's back pocket. I am simply saying that we are now turning to the politics of it. We've always been there. And as such, anybody who surfaces now with demands, if you will, you were talking about Diddy and others. I mean, I'd like to see somebody talk about, let's investigate what's best for the country. And the only person that seems to be talking in that way right now, for the little bit that we heard, was Joe Biden. I don't hear Donald Trump, our current president, saying, here's what I'm going to do in the future. He's fighting the day-to-day battle, and it seems almost as if sometimes the virus has gotten in the way of a real good discussion about what we should be doing. So I agree with all of the publishers in terms of how we individually look at it, but I don't want anybody who's listening to this not to think that Karen, John, Jackie, myself are not ingrained in what's happening locally. Because what's happening locally is, one, our life's blood, and it's our community. The fact that we're on this show nationally gives voice to what we're saying. And I don't want the conversation about the black vote being held for hostage or what Joe Biden said to take away from the roles that we play in our community. And just for the sake of the time element, I would be remiss if I didn't let everybody know, Stacey Brown, you're recovering from this virus too. So we're blessed in many, many ways. As a matter of fact, you and your wife, if I'm not mistaken, are blessed to be here, and we're blessed to have you. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Well, thanks, Jim. Our readers, viewers, I should say, Aisha, Mustafa. Actually, Aisha is one of us, one of our publishers, right? Can someone address the attack by Graves Jr. on newsprint? More of a certain that Biden, and I don't see the rest of that, comment, but the attack by Graves Jr. on newsprint. Now I have to admit, it's not easy when you say you don't know what a person is talking about. But I'm going to be humble enough to admit I'm not fully aware of that situation. If any of you are, please speak to
Well,
it.
Stacey, yes. What he's referring to is last week when the NAACP with Ed Gordon hosted their Blacks in Media. They left the black press out of it completely. Graves made some comment about we were now obsolete, which shows that he doesn't read, ironically, when his father came from a magazine itself. And so this is a very important gap that we need to talk about, because it's not an either or. We might be print, but we're also digital, which is often missed. And then one of the most important things about us right now is that we have credibility. We're what they call in the census business a trusted messenger. At a time that social media has all kinds of fake people saying and putting things up, people believe what we say because we have a track record. And it's unfortunate that people like Mr. Graves has missed a part of his education in not understanding our 193 years, many of which made it possible for him to be here today and hold the position that he holds, made it possible for his daddy to do what he did with the magazine, and now he's got amnesia. So I guess we're going to have to educate him.
Wow. But and I want you publishers.
John, how do you really feel?
Yeah, but it's interesting because I think it's important that our viewers and the readers of the Black press understand where that comes from. Graves and others may be Black journalists, but they don't work for the Black press. This is the Black press before you here. This is part of the Black press. Karen Carter Richards, you wanted to pick up on Dr. Warren's comments?
Yes, and I'm trying to be gentle. When I saw the advertising going out for it, it's like, why are they always so concerned with, are we relevant? Yeah, we're relevant. Are they dying? We still here 193 years, and and I came up under the senior publishers of NNPA, and I mean I can't use the colorful language they used to use, but y'all write for people. We Black folks that own newspapers, and so all of a sudden you want to sense that are we relevant? Yeah, we relevant. We still here. We gonna be here. So I'm annoyed by it sometimes, and sometimes you just have to let them do what they do.
Well, the fact, Karen, that they raised the question should raise the question in our mind as to whether or not they are relevant.
There you go.
Okay, if they're the ones who are missing the boat, they're not relevant. If they aren't aware and don't understand. I want to add something to this. I have been very disturbed with the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, doing all of this promo and pushing this idea when Derek Johnson has relied upon the Black press to carry his commentaries every week. We have covered. CNN does not carry NAACP press releases or statements. It's the Black press. And yet he does not open his mouth one time to support us. Neither does Mark Mariel, and we carry his stuff for the Urban League. We are the ones who carry them. And I think they need to be reminded of that, because they've gotten so carried away with the people that they hang out with that they forget where home is.
Right.
Jackie Hampton, I always hear in the Black press, truth to power. Speaking truth to power, I think that we have truth to power going on here. What do you got to say about it?
Absolutely. I was really shocked about the comments made by Mr. Graves regarding the Black press and our print newspapers, and the fact that he has said we will not be around the next 5 or 6 years. I have not gotten over that. I just read about it just before we came on air. And so as far as the question coming up before us right now, it's very, very timely. But I hope he is tuned in to us this morning or this afternoon and realizing how relevant we are, what we really do, not just nationally, but in each of our communities. We are so relevant. We are here to stay. We're celebrating our 80th anniversary. We've been here 193 years. Where does he think? Where does he get off on believing one moment that we'll be gone in 5 years. And then, yes, I'm disappointed at our president of the NAACP. It's just unreal. And for them to have a panel and not have not one of the Black publishers that are members of the NNPA on that panel was, I mean, it's unreal. So I really do think that through our president, Dr. Ben Chavis, and through the president of the NAACP, that we can get together and find some common ground and really educate that organization that has been around so long and not realized today how relevant the Black press is.
Well, you know, Jackie, Jim, Dr. Warren, Karen Carter Richards, Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informer made a great point the other day. She joined us Monday. She was a special guest. She said, and it's true what she said, obviously, that many of the mainstream or white papers have shut down, they've closed, they've laid off thousands, tens of thousands. But the Black press hasn't laid off anybody. I'm still here.
Absolutely.
And 193 years of the Black press, 80 years, to Jackie's point, of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the trade that represents the Black press. Jim, educate us some more.
You know, I'm trying to care about what the NAACP says. I'm trying to care about what other organizations say, and I cannot, with a clear conscience, give a damn about it. I just can't. All right, and let me tell you why. This is a history lesson, if you will, and I'm speaking facts to ignorance. And ignorance would say, at some point in time, some of us have bought into the notion that their institutions are insignificant. Given the comment that was made by Mr. Gray, who had a printed publication and probably whose lifestyle was supported by that publication, and a father who understood the significance of that. I can go back to when the world was segregated. And people, you know, I'm that guy in the room that says, wait a minute, it didn't start here. We're looking at a snapshot if you want to look at today. This is a movie, and we've been in this movie for 193 years. And when this movie was totally Black and or white, the role of the Black press was understood by everybody in the world. Our businesses grew up in the communities that we serve. We grew up in the businesses that we serve. And everybody, at least on this panel, represents generations of folks in this business. I'm fortunate enough to tell you, hey, the next generation for me is running the paper. I'm co-publisher of the Dallas Week. The publisher's name is Patrick Washington, and he is looking at the next generation. So when you sit down and you look at the role that we played and the roles that we continue to play, there is not a Black elected official in this country who would repeat what you just said or what Greg said. There's not a Black elected official who misunderstands our contribution to our community. More importantly, there's not too many people in our communities who know about what we do that would repeat this relevant scenario. The one thing I would say is that I like the term pivot. We understand the role pivot because we've been pivoting for 193 years. And when you pivot, I can look at everybody on here and say, excuse me, our digital audience is about as significant, if not more so, than our printed. Our Facebook world is significant. There are people on our Instagram page who have never seen my paper, but they understand my brand. And I would say that about everybody. So if you look at the printed product, if you added the printed product numbers to the digital world, the social media world, and I think I'm on a live stream on Facebook or something right now. So our words.
You're alive in a few places.
That's why I'm trying not to cuss, excuse me. I'm really trying to say that once we get rediscovered, and we are being rediscovered now, the value of what we do gets it grows exponentially. So I want to thank the organization. I want to thank my colleagues, if you will, because if you were able to connect all of us as this show does, then what you would see is a common thread. And a common thread says somebody's got to stand up to the threats. Somebody has to speak for those without voice. somebody has to still carry the standard, if you will, that says the most powerful thing we have is information. The truth that we print is so much different from the truth that the so-called truth that you're going to see somewhere else. And I want to get off my soapbox and somebody else. While I'm saying that, everybody on here who's watching this should sign up Facebook, subscribe to our digital edition, follow our YouTube pages, if you all of that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Jim, we want each and every one of y'all to go on a soapbox. We have passed the bottom of the hour. You are watching live our great publishers of the Black Press, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. This is the 193rd year. You didn't hear that wrong. The Black Press. We started before slavery ended. So this is to show you how strong the Black Press is and has always been. Lakeitha Anderson, RAI, is in the house. Marlon Greer says we have to control our own narrative. Andre Johnson says, tell him, Jackie. And Marlon Greer, we get a lot of this too. You publishers probably don't notice this, the four that we have on today, but we get a lot of this. Marlon A. Greer, we at www.fli.tv own a media platform, and we produce and promote inspiring content, and we'll love to work with each and every one of you. We get a lot of that. When people start to realize the value of the Black Press, that's what we get. Dr. Warren, it's hard to say that it's hard to follow someone when we're talking to you, because it's always hard to follow you. I want to go back to you to get this conversation going, Dr. Warren. And please, we do want to hear about your publications, individual publications, but we also want to talk about the issues that affect all of Black America. So, Dr. Warren, no better person than yourself.
Well, I'd like to bring up a very pressing issue, this idea about reopening houses of worship. We have a lawsuit that's been filed in California by a few churches, and we have all kinds of statements being made now. And I want to say that as a pastor as well as a publisher, that God's really getting a bad name in the midst of all of this foolishness. Because first of all, the church is the person and it's not the building. And I think a lot of these people who are pushing to get back together are just doing it for the sake of the offering. Because they aren't on PayPal and they're not on CashLink and gifts and all the other ways that monies can be collected. But I think it's that Black people have to be extremely careful. And I want to give a kudos to Hardy Brown, who's a publisher, the original publisher. His daughter now has it of Voice News in Riverside, who has online an editorial that we put up this week as well online, which says, don't fall for Trump's okie doke on the reopening of churches. I think it's very important that we not be tricked into gatherings when we are so at risk. And I want Black people to be aware that we are as responsible for keeping ourselves alive as we are in criticizing others for not doing so. We don't have to go back into the malls and the stores just because they're open. We don't have to walk around, as many are, without a mask, without gloves. And I must stress the gloves, because I see people with masks all the time grabbing door handles, going in and out of stores, out of buildings. And yet this virus can live on metal, can live on cardboard, it can live on clothing. And this is a way a lot of this transmission is taking place. So I think that we have an obligation to be responsible. And I think that churches and the leadership of the churches have a tremendous obligation to be more than just a figurehead. I'm not really concerned about what the president of the Baptist Association says, or the Catholics, or the Methodists, or the Presbyterians. The bottom line is they're closed and we're open. And people are listening to us for direction. And I think we have to tell the story without being afraid of repercussions. Is this bishop going to be upset, or this pastor? I'm not worried about them being upset. If we do what the word says, we're going to be saving lives. And I like to remind people that Jesus, when they asked him, who do we obey? He said, give me a coin. He looked at the coin. He says, whose picture's on the coin? They said, Caesar. He says, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and unto God that which is God. and we don't have to clutter and spread the virus just to honor God.
Casey,
Amen.
Pass the plate.
so since James Washington is the choir right now, let me just go over to Jackie and Karen Carter Richards and back to James. But KP Hodges brings up a question for the publishers. NMPA, what does NMPA have planned as it relates to getting voters to the polls and or voting by mail? So Jackie, you want to start off?
Well, I was about to yield to the chairman. I mean, but that's okay. I think we're all in our local homes are doing our part, and we in NPA have to come together and send out the same message. We'll be having our verbal conference in July, and we're going to talk about that. But meanwhile, we each have to concentrate on what's going on or what we need to do in our communities to get people out to vote. I guess it was February, the end of February, I had the opportunity to speak at the Veterans Administration about the power of the Black vote. And there were veterans there and staff there at the VA hospital, community people. And I took them through the history of all our generations of people went through to be able to vote. And it was a history lesson. I think that it was very effective, and we have to do more of that. We can't just sit back and think people are going to automatically vote. We have to go out and we have to, well, since there's social distancing, it won't be a lot more of going out and speaking at the churches, but we can do things verbally. We've always set up booths, or we've gotten with other organizations that have events such as Breast Cancer Month, sickle cell, etc. We participated in those events, and we've set up booths, and we've actually registered people to vote. So what we have to do now, we have to transition to who we are and where we are right now, and we still have to do that in our local communities to make people get out and vote in November. We have to talk about it in our paper, and we have to do everything we can, because this year's vote is so important, just like it was when we elected President Barack Obama. We had more people voting, more young people voting, more young people working in the campaigns. This is a critical time for us. And yes, in NPA, we're going to do our part. I know we always do. We have a good chairman, our president and CEO. We're going to come together as an organization and do what we need to do. But meanwhile, locally, we have to do our part, and we have to do our part not next week or in July. We have to do it right now.
And before our great chair, Karen Carter Richards, answers that question, Karen, I just want you to know it's time to relax. You know why? Because the one and only Lenora is watching, and Lenora gave a great concert the other day. She's a great recording artist. Your baby, that's right. And we're looking forward to having Lenora right here on the stream to talk about her great music. But we're gonna we also have somebody watching just to show you publishers just how important the Black press really is. We have somebody watching from London right now, from the UK. So Karen Carter Richards, you want to go ahead and chime in there?
Yeah, we had Molly Belt from the Dallas Examiner was scheduled to chair the voters drive that we were going to have at our convention in New Orleans. But then the pandemic kind of sidetracked us. But she does a phenomenal job in Dallas with her paper, and she's so passionate about getting us out to vote that I'm going to be reaching out to her now that we know that we're going to have a virtual conference and see what we can do, because this all blindsided us. I mean, it kind of put us on the fast track. If we were going along kicking and screaming to digital, now we just have to regroup and do something. And I think this is a great time for the Black press, where most of us were weekly papers. Now we're daily, and have been. All of us have digital platforms. And so I think this is a great time for NMPA and the Black press of America.
Stacy, if I may follow, I wanted to hold back.
Absolutely.
Because of
don't hold back.
the two ladies, I wanted them to speak. But, you know, California is the one state that so far this year that has switched totally to a mail ballot.
Thank you.
And one of the things that we've done here through California Black Media and talking to publishers in the state, we have already initiated conversation with the Secretary of State, indicating the necessity of doing some outreach, i.e. sample ballots as early as September, because with the election being in November and people start mailing ballots early, say October, they need to do some ads with us that will show people what the sample ballot is going to actually look like. And the reason for that is because since the pandemic is causing more mail and online campaigning, we don't want the sample ballot to get lost in the barrage of campaign literature that people are going to be getting in the mail. So that's one of the things we're doing here. But I also think that one of the tasks that NMPA has is a position of advocacy in the area of this public policy. We must, first of all, educate a whole generation, if not two, of what we went through to get this vote. We got people who weren't alive when the Voting Rights Act was passed, who don't know what a poll tax is, who don't know how our parents were asked to recite the Constitution and the Declaration in Hebrew in order for them to vote when the people asking the question couldn't speak English. They have no idea what those things meant. We have lost track of the Congress, the Supreme Court, damaging the whole monitoring of elections and the voter suppression activity that's going on. And I salute Stacey Abrams for the work she's doing fighting voter suppression. But I think that we have to generate these stories. They're not coming from other sources. And we have time to educate our community and to remind them of the importance of what's coming up. That's one of the major roles we can play in terms of getting ready for this vote.
Yeah, Cheryl Smith has checked in. Beverly McKenna has checked in. We appreciate everyone. KP Hodges continues to talk with us. Socrates Garrett, Marlon Greer. But go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry for that little commercial interruption.
The commercials are good. I'm all for them. All right. But the question and the subject of what we're talking about also speaks to the importance of why we exist and what we're here for. So if there was, and I'm just reminded, I just saw something that talked about how Stevie Wonder took up a campaign to ultimately wind up with a holiday for Martin Luther King. I would simply say that if there's a place to start this, and I believe John is right in terms of education and the history of all of this, there's another side of it that simply says we can all talk about making voting by mail a national issue. That is something that will be significant long after this election, because once you get closer to the election, it's just about the vote, the vote, the vote. We cannot let the circumstances of the day take our eyes off of the subject of voter suppression. This is something that has been going on since we've been on this continent. Now, if I cannot miraculously wake up and change the status quo and recognize that somebody's going to change their heart and they're going to make it easier to vote, then it is very obvious looking at one side of the house that doesn't want voting to be universal and another side of the house that's saying it should be. Now, if you take the politics out of it, there's nothing to be said that would say, excuse me, every state in this union could have voting by mail. The whole issue of, I mean, the pandemic has shown you do not have to show up in a line and stand there for 3 hours to vote. That's ridiculous. But if it keeps certain people out of the polls, depending on where you put them and what kind of machines you use, then maybe we need to step back as the Black press. And our chairman is here. I want to make sure that everybody understands we got a Black female chairman. So I believe Black women can do anything. That's just the way I was raised. All right. So that's an initiative that we can start now. And we can be at this until it's there. I don't know whether we have to go state by state, whether we have to go county by county, because some people are saying that's a way to deal with the pandemic right now in terms of elections. Now, there are some states who would say, nope, the way to suppress the vote is to make people go to the polls during a pandemic. We just have to be smart enough to understand that there's a role for us And this is a standard that we can take and basically explain to people why that just makes the democracy work better. And we've always been there where we want democracy to work for everybody, particularly people of color.
Yeah, Karen Carter Richards, I'll start with you on this one. A lot has been implied about the quality of reporting done by the Black press. I want you to comment. I want each of the publishers to comment on the quality of the news gathering and the difference between the reporting done by the Black press and other media.
Okay, it was breaking up a little bit, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying. The black press, we write differently. We write for a way that our community gets it. We certain headlines, can you hear me?
Yes.
Certain headlines, certain topics. It's just a difference in the way that we can write it. Other media, their stuff is chopped up, cut up, and we pretty much say whatever it is that we want to say. And it's a different way that the Black press writes. So and I think a lot of times that's an issue for some people, because we are able to say what it is and get the information, telling the truth without fear or favor to our community, and not scared to do it.
Well, we even got an archbishop watching right now. Archbishop from Baltimore, Michael Watson Jr. is checked in. You guys are bringing in all sorts of crowds here. Jackie Hampton, I want to go back to that same question with you that I just asked Karen Carter Richards. There's been a lot of implied about the quality of reporting done by press. Comment, if you will, Jackie, on the quality of the news gathering and the difference between the reporting done by the Black press and other media.
Okay, Stacey, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, when you look there at our banner, you see something that says, "Keepers of the knowledge are for those who speak the truth." We are archiving our message every time we publish a paper. We don't publish untruths. We concentrate on making sure when you read the Mississippi Link, you can count on what you read there. You can take it to the bank. You're not gonna just come in and say anything and think. And we get that. We get people who want to send in editorials, etc., so that they can use our vehicle to say what they want to say. You're not going to be able to do that. Our writers do not tell things that are not true. Knowledge that you get in the Mississippi Link, you can bank on it. Yes, we're going to tell it different than you get from mainstream, because you can take the same situation and report on it from a negative standpoint if it involves an African American, and then you look at it in the Mississippi Link and you can hear the truth side of it, both sides to an issue. But we want to make sure that our articles are not, let's say, crucifying those that that we write about. You're going to get the true story, and that's what we're all about. We're keepers of the knowledge for those who speak the truth. And you're just not going to come in and just say anything, because we're not going to publish that. Years from now, when you go back into the archives and read what happened here in Mississippi or nationally, you're going to get the truth, and you can count on it. And that's why people call on us. Oftentimes, there's an article that may have been in mainstream newspaper, but they want to tell their side of the story. And that's what we do. We'll always do that. So when you read the story in the Mississippi Link, you can count on it being.
Stacey, can I
Jim Washington. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing that Jackie was saying. Another thing is that we're reporting on the stories that they're not interested in until it's a way that they can make some money out of. Like the Hidden Figures story, I heard a lot of the publishers talk about that. They had to go to a Black paper, Brenda Andrews' paper, Norfolk, Virginia, and get that story. These stories aren't hidden. We've been writing about our people for 193 years. They're not hidden. We have them. And so that's another difference. We're writing about the things that they don't seem to be interested in.
Yeah, and how often does a person like myself get to interview my bosses? Because you all are my boss. Jim Washington, go ahead, Jim.
I have to play the role in situations like this as a historian, and forgive me for doing so. But when the world was segregated, our professional journalists only had one place to work, and that was in black newspapers. And black newspapers exposed lynching. They desegregated the armed forces. They did a number of things because we had professional journalists writing for us. All of a sudden, one day you looked up and there were riots in the 60s. And I'm old enough to remember those riots. And white newspapers had no black reporters, zero. And you know what? They said, I tell you what, there's a whole bunch of black reporters over there at black newspapers. So they raided our newsrooms. And I meant it like that. They raided our newsroom so they could have some legitimacy going into our communities and trying to figure out what the hell was going on there. Now, the same thing happened when Jackie Robinson crossed the racial line. All right, what that did was kill black baseball done by black professionals and owned, and those teams were owned by black folk. That industry is gone. We just didn't go away. So for a period of time, black folks felt like they needed to attend NYU. They needed to attend the University of Missouri journalism schools. Now, that doesn't say that they weren't getting a good education in black schools, but in order to make it, they needed to have that degree and hopefully a job at ABC. Anybody who knows anything about this industry realizes that anybody of any significance back in the day of white folks and black folks in journalism, those folks came from the black press. The world is looking a little different right now. You do not have to do that to get a voice. There are too many places that you can get a voice. So when you start talking about the quality of journalism, I'm talking about the quality of the journalists. And all of a sudden, just like we're being exposed on this show, kids, young people are starting to turn towards this industry as a place where they might have some freedom to tell the truth about what's going on in their communities that only they can because they come from their community. So it's just a matter of time before, and it's not even a matter of time. I can look at every newspaper that you have on here today and look at excellence in journalism as received by the reporters who work for us. So now when you start thinking, well, maybe that's a little bit less than, then I submit to you, I went to the University of Wisconsin and hung out with brothers who were trying to get medical degrees. So you can't tell me black doctors are not as proficient as white doctors, because I know what kind of hell those brothers went through just to get that degree. So I'm simply saying that part of our longevity, part of our ability is to be able to say to the world, look at who's the host on this show. Look at who has put together the technology behind it. They kind of look like us, which lets you know that talent will go where they are able to utilize the fullest of that talent. Our job is to make sure that we can pay that talent, and that's what we're doing.
Stacey.
Well, before Dr. Warren, before we go to you, someone just Aisha Muhammad just brought up a major point. Legendary newspaper woman Ida B. Wells honored 90 years after her death with a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting on lynchings of blacks in the South. Archive, never irrelevant, so honored to walk in her shadow. John Warren.
I want to speak to 3 items that have been raised here so far, and I'm going to try to do it very briefly so I cover all 3. First of all, reporting by us in terms of what happens to us. Remember in 1827, the statement was made, no one can tell our story but us. And so we still have to tell our story. But I think some people miss something historically about newspapers. Newspapers initially were not intended to address the news. The news in the newspaper was intended to address the ads. So the stories were used to bring people to the page to see the ads. The same thing happened with television. We see all of these commercials unleashed, but the stories are there to address the commercials. The difference is the black press never had the commercial base. And the whites who came to our press, they didn't come to cover us in the 60s or the 70s because all of a sudden they woke up with a moral consciousness. They came to cover us because we represented a market that had not been tapped. And they wanted to tap that market. Now, truth be told, the black press has been like the bumblebee. The bumblebee, because of his weight and size, aerodynamically is not supposed to fly, but nobody ever told him. So he does. So we have published without the grocery stores and the car dealerships and the department stores and all of these things because we've had a commitment to the truth of what we needed to put out for the community. And that's been the key, that we have published with a sense of righteous conviction and concern without money being the factor. Now, folks have come along and tried to discredit that effort. They've tried to hold back business from us. They've tried to take our business. And I have to remind people, there was a time that the only time you saw a black person on the front page of a white paper was because they had just been shot or was laying over the hood of a car, or they made the obituary. When we started publishing, we started making our stories known. And I had a situation with my Florida paper some years ago on Main Street where this white man walked in and asked, why didn't I have any white people on the front page of my paper? And my response to him was, when you do something newsworthy, you can make it. But being white ain't enough. And so we continue not to be afraid to speak. That's the key. And people will read us because they have faith in us. We have built credibility so that people will pick up our paper because, like Paul Harvey, they want us to give them the rest of the story. And we can't chicken out and pull back and get scared in the whole thing. God has always made a way for us, and he's still making a way for each and every one of us. Amen.
Well, see, you know, and that's why we have the chair on, because I have the chair to follow Dr. Warren. If anybody can follow Dr. Warren, we have to throw it to the chair. But you know, before we do, Karen Carter Richards, just want you to know that Clovis Campbell of the Arizona Informant has checked in. Dr. Warren, Lenora says she says that was savage. And that's a good word that she's used there. But Dr. Tony Draper's checked in as well from the Baltimore Afro. Cheryl Smith says Jim Washington actually hired me when I was a young journalist.
We know how to plant seeds.
So it gives us an idea just how Jim's age, but we not telling everybody that he just turned 35.
Jim
Carter Richards
looked in, if that was the case.
But you know, we do have young people in the black press. There is the young lady in New Orleans who's Tisdale, Deanna Tisdale.
Jackson.
I think she said her age. Yes, Jackson. Yeah, I think she said her age. And she's a very young publisher, dynamic publisher. And along those lines, Karen Carter Richards, what is the black press doing to engage more young people in the process? Because they are the future of the black press.
Definitely. You know, I'm a second generation publisher, and my daughter's coming behind me, and she's going to be the third generation. And I'm so glad to have them here working with me. It's unbelievable. I have to step back sometime and let them take me in a different direction, because when I was working under my mom, sometimes she was like, no, we don't need to do that. We need to do this. And sometimes you didn't get that opportunity to do that. So with my daughters, when they started was in the social media era, when it started, they were telling us, hey, our friends didn't even know, their friends would comment and say, we didn't even know we had this mechanism. They didn't even know they had the black press. So having them around, they constantly give me ideas, different changes we need to make. They tell me what it is that they want to see. And believe it or not, the millennials, they want real news, stuff that's informative to them. And we just had a meeting about that. And they said, we want to be informed of real news. And so I think that's why they're being driven to the black press, because that is exactly what we do. We're not like I said, we're not into sensationalism. We tell real, but they can get real information about what's going on in their community. So I think it's a great asset. I'm hiring some more writers now, so social media coordinators, and because this is a new way, and I'm enjoying it. It's a little frightening because we print people, but I am enjoying the ride.
Yeah, and we are happy to be along for that ride. Dr. Warren, you started because of you. There's a hashtag now. Being white ain't enough.
love it.
So you done got something started now.
You know,
Jackie,
I want to echo Karen, what Karen said, because I have the same experience. My daughter LaTanya has made a phenomenal difference here in terms of attracting young people. And we reach out to the young folks in every way. They have made, they've played a major role in the food distribution here. They've come together with large numbers. I mean, they put together the baskets, they put them out. I get online with them. They put the paper in. We give them coverage online and in print. And so this is a phenomenal opportunity. And we too are recruiting, looking for people who want to write seriously. I'm not looking for poets or people looking to create a novel while they think they're writing for a paper. We want people who have a real interest in news and a passion for what's going on. And I believe that, as that old saying is, the strong keep coming. I believe God is always sending more. And we just have to be open-minded and open-hearted to receive them.
Jackie Hampton, are you with us on this one?
I'm definitely with you, Stacy, and I'm also in agreement with the other publishers. Now, the Mississippi Link is known for having groomed young writers. We've had interns over the years, and the interesting part about it is I've watched these interns come and work with the Mississippi Link, and I've watched them grow, and I kind of followed them along the way. For instance, 2 years ago, we had a young intern, Sienna Hope Reeves, and she worked with us 6 weeks during the summer. She did an excellent job. I wished I could have kept her, but before she, and then the next year, she interned with one of the television stations here, and they have since hired her. That happens over and over and over again with us. We bring these people in, and that's what we want them to do. Take this knowledge, and even if you don't stay with us, go somewhere and take what you've learned and run with it. But while you're here, there are certain expectations, and we're getting that. We just hired a young intern that attends Tougaloo College, and he's already said, okay, I'm going to take this website on. I'm going to take this digital thing on. And there's some things I want to change. And I said, don't tell me about it. Just go do it, because I trust you. So what we're doing, we have a young writer, Paul Cohen, that's writing for us this summer. The good thing about NNPA, over the years, I've had the opportunity to chair the scholarship committee for NNPA. And each year we award somewhere between 20 to 40 scholarships to students attending HBCUs. And through that, I've gotten to know a lot of students and a lot of deans over throughout not just the South, but I've had the opportunity to go and participate in their media day that's held every year. And from there, I learned so much about what these aspiring writers, journalists, broadcasts, graphic artists are doing in the schools. And I must say that the HBCUs are doing an exceptional job with these students. And all we have to do is give them the opportunity. We have to move over, because they know so much more than we know. It's when I need something done, for instance, this morning, Stacy, I told my daughter, my son, I've got to be on this streaming. Just come get me ready. So it's the young people, and then they'll set me up, and I can go on about my business and get back to what I do best, and that's marketing and sales in the Mississippi Link. So I embrace the young people. I welcome them, and we will always depend on them as they bring new ideas and new thoughts and a new way of looking at the world in their eyes. Because when we look at it the way they look at it, they look at it the way we look at it. We come somewhere in the middle, and we get just what we want still. Truth to power.
Well, Jim, we already got a little bit of a track record from you, from Cheryl Smith. I want you to continue on and tell us your track record some more.
Well, you know, I have to say that I don't know if I was ahead of the curve or not, but one thing I do know is that, and Cheryl Smith is a stellar journalist in Dallas. She says I hired her, but I don't think I had a choice, because she came and demanded that I hire her. I think Cheryl owns a couple of newspapers, and there are others that are. I mean, Roland Martin worked for us. I mean, there are a number of journalists that I don't take credit for it, but we were there. Now, part of that is because we do good work. Young people see good work. And when they see good work, they want to be a part of it. So a lot of the quote recruiting has been somebody's walked in my front door and said, this is what I do, and I would love to do it for you. The Dallas Weekly is a multi-generational operation, as I said earlier. My son is running the company, and his sphere of influence is a little bit different than mine in the sense of who comes in wanting to work and wanting to tell the story. So we are well positioned right now. I will give something to our current president. He has focused media so much on government, what government is and is not doing, that I think he's even gone beyond that as it relates to what Barack Obama brought to it through his database. So now all of a sudden, this becomes a desirable place to do and to be and to make a difference. So if you want to make a difference in this field, then I think the Black press wants you there. And not all of us have totally Black staffing. You've got some talented white folks who work for us. You've got some talented people of color who work for us. The one thing I will say is that if you believe the hype, then the hype says Black people don't read, young Black people don't read, if you believe the hype. But if you look at the facts, what you realize is that we're living in a world where the most informed population in the world looks like us. We still drive social media. We still drive what's going on in the digital space. We still drive that because we are trendsetters. Now, all of a sudden, some of that trending is starting to have people look at what we do and have done. And what you've heard from the other publishers is now all of a sudden they're in our newsrooms demanding change. I mean, my son has been demanding change for, I think, decades now, and he's not that old. But what he really wanted to do is to say, hey, there's something better we can do to inform the folks who did not pick up the newspaper, may still not pick up the newspaper. One of the things that I know about the Mississippi Link, the Voice and Viewpoint in San Diego, and the Houston Forward Times is that these are stellar, impeccable brands. And it's about the brand. You can do whatever you want to do and compete with me, but you can't do anything about my brand. My brand has been running around Dallas, Texas for at least 60 years. And each one of us has that kind of legitimacy in our community. So when you start moving away from what we do as journalists and look at us as businesses, then these businesses have some longevity in our communities. The only other institutions that we have are the Black schools and the Black church. And when all three of us were together, we move mountains. Our job is to really reconnect because we're going to touch Black America and the rest of the world through forging relationships with those institutions. Some of the social ones, I'll say, yeah, come along with us. But if you miss us, I ain't waiting.
You know, all that Jim said, I mean, it was some great stuff he just said. Everything he said was great. But you know what, the one thing that stood out for me, he said, we got white folks working for us. What's up, Jim? We got some white folks.
No, wait. There's no white folks at the Dallas Weekly.
You're not the only one.
What was it, John? Hashtag what? White I'm going to say that because what you have found is that, hey, I graduated undergraduate from Southern University Law School. And that law school has an international student population because the quality of the education is that good. So you have people who would love to work for us because they understand the quality of that journalism is very good. And all of us are not in the position to say no when you have some talent walking into the door. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
I want to mention what Zane Beyond Words has posted. My daughter has followed in my footsteps and is a junior at Columbia University. I got my start at a Black newspaper and would like to encourage her to submit to Black publications. My undergrad degree was earned at an HBCU and they trained me well. Please continue to push the young writers to use their voice. Absolutely. I know all the publishers would agree with that. I have a question for each of the publishers again, and this time we'll get to start with John Warren instead of him closing us down, right? Why is it more important than ever for advertisers to support local journalism, especially the Black press, Dr. Warren?
Well, first, because it's good business. That's the main reason. I mean, we have a niche market at a time that we mentioned earlier that all these other papers are shutting down. We are consistent. Our people are reading. Our people spend enough money to be equivalent to the 11th largest GNP in the world. And so, if they want to do business, then they should advertise with us because we are readers and we are consumers. And those are two very important reasons. My problem is that they tried to come to us with an outdated white standard. And they want to ask us how many people do we reach. The issue is not how many people do we reach. The issue is how many people do we touch. Because the people we touch respond to what we do in meaningful ways in terms of also how they shop. And so I think it's important if the advertisers want to move their products. If they want to stay closed-minded in old schools, then they can stay over there and go out of business like other people. But I think people are going to follow regardless of their color. You know, in San Diego, people do business with us because of what we do that interests them, be they Black, white, Asian, Latino. It's not about selling to a color. The dollar is green and the truth doesn't change. And I believe that if you follow and market in that direction, we have untapped reservoirs of business that we're just waiting to reach. And I hope that we can help do that through NMPA.
Karen Carter Richards, our national chair, same question to you. Why is it so important, or more important than ever, for advertisers to support local journalism, especially the Black press?
It's very important. I mean, we still have people. I had a gentleman come by this morning for a Shake Community Center, say, hey, I need some more papers. How many can you give me? Because those are some of the places that are slowly opening back up. We putting out the news that our community needs, and it's smart for them to connect with those consumers because they're very loyal consumers. So, like I'm with Dr. Warren. It would be smart for them to do so, but also to our community. Pay attention to who's advertising in your community. Pick up the papers in your different cities. Go to our website, nnpa.org, and look at the list of Black newspapers. Support them, but also pick up their papers. See who you're spending money with that don't care anything about your community. So I think it's very important that they do so, and if they are not, they should get on board because it's not because we're not reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie Hampton, Mississippi Link, same question. Advertisers supporting local journalism, especially the Black press. Why is that more important than ever?
Well, first of all, it's extremely important. It always has been important. And I just want to say before I totally answer that question, we have so many loyal advertisers that have been with us over the years. And I am so grateful to them because they do understand. They understand that we are large consumers of restaurants, buying cars. I mean, you name it, televisions, retail, wholesale. So those that have stuck with us over the years are the ones that truly already understand. Those that do not, they need to get on board and understand we are such a trusted vehicle. And when they see ads by our retail outlets or whatever the outlet may be, service outlet, we are trusted, and they are so prone to go to that particular outlet than those that are not advertising with us. So it's very, very important. And one thing John Warren said that I thought was very, very important. And he says something to the effect that it's not about the numbers. It's about the fact, really, that we are a trusted source. So now it's just as important as ever, or even more so. And I think a lot of advertisers are getting on board, and they're realizing that this particular point. If they want to do business or want our dollars, then they definitely have to advertise in our particular papers. And hats off to those that already realize that, but those that do not, if you want to increase your business, those that are closed down and coming back up when we open back up, realize how important the Black press is. I would just say we are just as important today as we always have been. And it's because of loyal advertisers that we are still here. And it's those that have not been advertising will be those that will help to sustain us in the future. We're here to stay. Anybody that does not realize we're here to stay, they are operating somewhere I don't understand.
Well, before we get to Jim Washington, and I'm encouraging Jim Washington of the Dallas Weekly to definitely go on his soapbox if he wants to.
Okay.
Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informer said, "Speak, John Warren. The question is how many people we reach that spend money. All of our readers spend money. Our readers are their potential consumers. Don't miss out." And Zane Beyond Words, again, I required my students to have a subscription to a Black publication for my class or have someone sponsor their subscription. The floor is yours, Jim Washington, Dallas Weekly.
Well, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time trying to repeat what has already been said. I'm just one of those guys that deals with what I call market forces. Now, as an advertiser, you need to go where the money is, period. In the story, I don't care what the scenario. John said it earlier. When you get to this world, it's about green. Politically speaking, no one wants to say no to $1 anymore. Not for racial reasons or political reasons or what have you. The pandemic has also showed us that economic systems are at stake when people are separated and cannot function the way the system was designed to function. So therefore, I'm all about the numbers. The Dallas Weekly, under my leadership and under my son's leadership, has been gathering numbers. Because if you look at the marketplace, you have to start to program where the market is going. And this market, known as the United States of America, is getting a little browner by the day. And as it is doing so, it's not getting browner and is poverty stricken. It's getting browner because that's where the money is. That's where people are coming out of school. So if you got any sense as an advertiser, you need to be there. So if you're going to be there, then why not be there through a vehicle the way that we're talking about it? And that vehicle happens to be the Black press. That didn't say anything about color. I didn't say anything about color. What I said is, here's a market, here's a vehicle to get to that market, and you have a reason to want to get to that market because you have goods and services to provide to them. So it is on us also to re-engage our own community to build those numbers. So we just have a philosophy that says, if you're getting your information off your watch, we're going to be there. If you're getting your information off your laptop, we're going to be there. If you get your information off your phone, we're going to be there. We're still printing our newspaper, and we're doing a good job at that. We also have a digital edition. You don't have to get it in the mail. We'll send it to you on your phone. So we have to be where the consumer is consuming information. We have the content because all of our numbers are growing digitally. Now we have to convert that to the advertiser because you still have people who just don't want to do the work. They want this to be easy. Those who, like Jackie just said, those who are aware of where the market is going, what the market looks like, that's an easy sell. When you say to people, and I have said, well, you're just a small newspaper in whatever city you're in. Okay, well, that's the newspaper. Did you look at our Facebook audience? Have you looked at our Instagram audience? Have you looked at our Twitter audience? Have you looked at our YouTube channel? All of that's our audience, because I guarantee nobody's stumbling upon me. They're looking for me on purpose. And I would say that this is the difference between going to a mall when they open up and going to the food court. You don't know what you want, all right? But everybody around there on this deal says, you know what, there's a restaurant that you will go to, and that's a destination. The Black press is a destination. And because of that, that's why you should do advertising.
Yeah, well, just as a quick, before we ask, we have another fine question for our publishers. This has been a dynamic panel as we expected. And And for those who may be tuning in for the first time, we do this every Monday and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And so you'll know on June 1st, Monday, June 1st, we'll have Wayne Hales of the Courier Echo Latino in Columbus, Georgia, David Miller of Our Weekly in Los Angeles, Kenda Howe of the Amsterdam News in New York, and Rosetta Perry of the Tennessee Tribune in Nashville, Jackie's good friend down in Nashville. We'll have her. And tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we got a lot going on here at NNPA and the Black Press. Tomorrow, right here at 1 o'clock, we're going to have 5 distinguished African American doctors who are going to talk more about the NNPA's Coronavirus Task Force and Resource Center. They're going to talk about what's really happening in Black America as it pertains to COVID-19. And then following that, at 3:30, we have the chair of the CBC, Karen Bass. And starting Monday, we are excited because Monday is Black Music Appreciation Month. So not only will we have the publishers at 1, but a special broadcast we'll do later that evening, kicking off Black Music Appreciation Month, our first of many groundbreaking musicians and those related to the music industry is Russell Simmons. And then we also will have Al Green, the great singer Al Green. We will have Otis Williams of the Temptations and so many others. Just tune in, keep tuning into the Black Press for this great information. Publishers.
One statement. I know you're going somewhere. All right, but I have to say this because we're all talking about it, and I would like to give you guys the opportunity to what I would say. I think you need to start putting the next generation on this because Karen talked about poking her shot. John talked about his daughter. I'm talking about my son. Jackie's talking about interns, etc. I believe that you would have a real dynamic show when you put those folks on because they're not going to sound anything like we do.
I know, right?
Well, to your point, Jim Washington, I mentioned earlier about one of our young publicists, Deanna Jackson. I think she's 34 years old. But more than that, though, just along those lines, for Black Music Month, we do have, as I mentioned earlier, and we wasn't kidding, we do plan to extend the invitation to Lenora and others. Denise Rolock has a son who is in the music industry, and she also has a son who runs the Bridge, who actually that newspaper is directed toward young ones. So we're on top of it, Jim.
Thank you,
Stacey.
I don't want you to miss it. That's all.
Stacey, I'd like to get a 30-second commercial in. On Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I host the Internet Talk Show Radio from the desk of the editor, and it's on GODradio1.com from 7 to 8. So it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So we get a few hundred people out here that follow it, and we invite you. It's calls in. It's a call in. It streams on Facebook and Livestream and the interactive program. So it's GODradio1.com. You can always go to the Voice and Viewpoint, our website, and get the address and dial in, and we'd be happy to have you join us. Thank you for today and for this opportunity.
Dr. Warren, that 30 seconds is going to cost you because Jackie Hampton's on deadline,
I'm sorry, Jackie.
That's okay.
My paper's done for the week.
Well, before we close it out, I do want the publishers to respond to this. Black people are, as we know, dying disproportionately. We're being murdered. We just had another unbelievably crazy situation with a cop killing a young Black male. They're supposed to protect us. We are being denied life-saving health care. What is the role of the Black press in saving Black lives? And I guess we can start with the chair. You guys can just discuss that openly with each other so we can all hear, though.
It was breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat it? I can't hear you.
Sure. We talked about how Black people are dying disproportionately, being murdered by police, and those under the color of law. We're being denied life-saving health care. What is the role of the Black press in saving Black lives?
You know, we've been doing this a very long time. I can remember us going to, they had a private screening for us at the African American Museum, and we were all excited to be there. And as we walked through, we looked at things that we had been writing about for years, and then it was like, we still writing about the same thing. And I just believe it's our responsibility to keep telling the truth, keep push truth to power, and informing the community, because if they pay attention, if they pay close attention, we're letting them know long before some of this stuff happens. And so I think it's our responsibility to connect and get the information to them, whoever it may be, with the medical field. It's a lot of doctors, whatever, the health disparities, educators, that we can get this information from, and we need to continue. And I know a lot of us are still doing that every week, and now every day. So it's very important. Nothing has changed. We're needed now more than ever.
Yeah. At Jackie Hampton, we usually get thousands of people who watch this stream of our publishers. Same question. Can you speak to that?
Yes. Our role is to put eyes on what's going on each and every day. That's what's good about this digital market we're in right now, because now we can talk about it every day, not just as we do in our weekly print edition, but on our digital platforms. We have to make sure that they know, others know, officers know, those that are mistreating our young people. We're watching, and we are demanding some changes. There are just too many areas that we are disproportionately being mistreated. Of course, the COVID-19, we're not getting the medical care we have. The killings and the murders and the putting your knee on the chest of Black young folks while you're trying to find out why you want to arrest them in the beginning. They're calling out for help and you ignore it. That's called murder. Anybody cannot understand that. That's called murder. Our young people are being murdered every day by those that are supposed to be protecting us. And we just have to put an eye on that daily, throughout the day, and of course, weekly. I like to publish what's going on in the community. I love the positive news. In fact, some people say I pick up the newspaper, the Mississippi Link, because it's a positive newspaper. We hear about things that are going on every day, throughout the day, that are negative. But I tell you, we have to take a stand when these things continue to happen to African Americans. It's not fair. It's not fair in the health field. It's not fair how we are being treated disproportionately when we are being stopped. It's not fair that you can look at an individual who's bird watching and you're asked to put your dog on a leash, and then you call 911 and say you're being attacked. These kinds of things are happening every single day, and we have to start talking about it more. We have to do our part here at the Mississippi Link. We have to do our part nationally. I think Dr. Ben Chavis and you, Stacy, and others are putting the light on a daily basis, things that are going on, and alerting, this nation about it's just not going to happen. We have to do our part. Black lives matter. All lives matter, of course, but we are disproportionately being mistreated every single day, and probably every single hour of the day. We have to do more to put the eyes on this and hold people accountable. We have to do a better job here locally. It's not just positive anymore. We've got to make a change.
Well, I think you board members, along with Dr. Chavis, Claudette Perry, and the staff at NNPA are really, Karen Carter, Richard here, are really doing a great job with that. Jim, we want you to weigh in on that as well.
I thought John had a point because he's getting older, so he might.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're so kind. I just wanted to mention two things real quick. Number one, I think I want to encourage people to read Benjamin Trump's book, Open Season, because he's documented the continuation of the murders like the one that we saw a couple of days ago. And I think that we need to do more than just inform people. We need to get active, and we need to get involved in terms of what can we do to stop what's taking place. because right now it appears that it has been determined that it's okay. And it's not enough to have an investigation, to have a trial that people whitewash and let people go and just think it's business as usual. And so I think it's up to us to start doing something about what's taking place. And thank you so much, Jim. I'm going to remember you when you get my age.
Okay, that'll be tomorrow, John, by the way. One thing that, we can't do, and it's real, and that is we just can't let us forget. There is nothing new about what's going on. Everybody wants this to be, it's 2020. This still can't be happening. Well, it never stopped. I mean, if I said earlier in this show that the black press was responsible for highlighting the lynching of Black people in the South, then we can go back that far to talk about the same dynamic that we see now. Race and racism is a part of what this country is. We're the ones that have always looked up to an ideal that most people haven't, and that is all men are created equal, because it's written down. And we have been striving to do that, and we cannot get weary, so to speak, and just take it as normal. The fact of the matter is social media and everything else has allowed us to see things because everybody's got a camera. Most folks, they even got body cams on the police department. We can just never accept the fact that we've made it, because every day, as Jackie just said, there's some atrocity that has been put upon us that you can get numb to if you allow yourself to do so. You can turn the channel. You don't have to go on YouTube. As the Black press, we can't afford that. One of the most exciting things that we've talked about here today is that there's another generation coming. There's a next generation of us who will be and are committed to making sure that you can't forget. This is no knock on my Jewish friends, but there'll be a movie at the holidays tomorrow, during the holidays at Christmas, about the Holocaust. They never let you forget. We can never let this country forget or get used to the fact that Black people are dying in the streets because they're being killed in so many ways. State-sanctioned police officers, health disparities in the health industry across the board. This pandemic is not new that this pandemic is messing with us and messing with somebody else. Go look at heart disease. Go look at diabetes. All of that. The point is that we have to sustain ourselves so that we can tell the story, so that we can organize the way John just said, so that we can fight. And if the fight is just putting it on the front page of our newspapers, please understand, I don't ever want anybody to forget. Folks have died doing what we do. Period. End of story. Whether it's Ida B. Wells, whether it was, the Jackson paper, help me out. The bombing of the Jackson paper, Jackie.
Jackson Free Press, Mr.
There you go. I mean, when you start to tell the truth, there's a risk. And I'm just glad to be amongst men and women who are willing to take that risk on. And I appreciate it. That's the key. We just cannot stop.
Yeah. James Washington of Dallas Weekly News, Jackie Hampton, Mississippi Link, Dr. John Warren, San Diego Voice and Viewpoint, and our distinguished chair, Karen Carter Richards of the Houston Forward Times. It's been a dynamic conversation. We appreciate you guys so much. Keep leading the way for us, and we will keep up the fight. So thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank everybody. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Okay.
We will see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. 5 great African-American doctors tune in. And then after that, Karen Bass, the chair of the CBC. Stay safe, everyone, and stay well. This has been the National Newspaper Publishers Association live broadcast about saving local journalism.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bless everyone.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Be safe.